Clock. I'm Yolanda Greaves. I have a special guest co-host today, and that is John Dudley. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me here at Around the Clock. John is a citizen of Ashland, as well as the chair of our planning board, as well as a business owner. So it's nice to have you with me today.
Glad to be here.
Good. So we have a great show coming up for you. This show is Arts in and Around Ashland. We're going to be talking to Joe White and Kelly Fay from the Ashland Community Theater. We're also going to be speaking with Mr. David Harrington from the Ashland High School Theatrical Society, and we're going to take you to an art exhibit in Framingham. So please stay tuned to Around the Clock, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Around the Clock. We are getting ready for our Selectmen's Update. So I'm going to take us through the meeting. And John, as I talk, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to jump right in.
You got it.
So we had our last meeting on Wednesday, October 14th. It was a long one. We started at 6 and didn't get done until about 10 o'clock. We had John Ellsworth to come and ask for the use of the community center for their annual bonfire. Unfortunately, because of some insurance requirements, they were not able to have it, so we're hoping that they can reschedule. Then we had Steve Greenberg from the Ashland Sporting Authority come before us because the VFW is looking to extend their premise for their liquor license for their half marathon. So we allowed that. Then David Manugian came before us, and we had to declare a water supply emergency. And what that means is we have said, okay, if as of November 1st, our water levels do not come up, if we have no rain, then we will apply to the Metro West Regional Water Authority for an emergency water connection, which we did last year, but we wound up not having to turn it on. But unfortunately, the MWRA meets certain times, and we didn't want to have to request that they do special meetings. So he came before us for that. They're also doing some work in Framingham on the Winter Street Bridge, which is the bridge right there by La Cantina. And our sewer main that goes from Ashland to Framingham goes under that bridge. So they're going to do a temporary connection, make sure the permanent connection is good, and then if they need to use it, they will. So it's always interesting sitting on the Board of Selectmen, the kinds of things that you hear.
That is interesting.
And have to vote on. Needham Bank came before us. You had spent a lot of time with Needham Bank. So they've gone through their planning board process. They've gone through their ZBA process. So that's all in place. And then they had to come to the Board of Selectmen to get approval to do some improvements to public land that is around their land. So they're going to improve some of the sidewalks that are around the bank. They're going to improve some plantings that are around the bank. They're going to close the sidewalk. If you're in the municipal lot, there's the sidewalk and there's the pass through from the municipal lot to their bank parking lot. So they're going to close that up, put in some new sidewalks there, and just make it look all very pretty. So
that's just outside the massive pothole, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So and the massive pothole, I'm sure, will be going away as well.
That's why you don't want to drive through there.
Right. Yeah, you go through there, and especially if there's any water, it's just yeah. Then yeah, it'll be good. I guess they're looking to have stuff happening as of December or January. I don't know. They're talking with their builders, and they're thinking April. So we'll see what happens. But they have everything passed, and I think they'll be a good neighbor once they get in. So. And then NSTAR came before us because they're looking to do some cutting of our roads over on Whittemore, which is off of High Street. There's some new houses going in, and they have to cut underneath the road because they're going to be underground utilities that they're putting in there, which are nice. We also had Barbara Chisholm here from the cable station with Steve Eulis, who's on the Cable Access Board, come before us to use some of the capital money that we get when we do our contracts with Verizon and Comcast to be able to be here in town. They give us funds for capital projects. So we approved some projects here at the cable station to improve their technology, to improve their editing, and to be able to do some HD technology of their shows going out. So if people have HD TV, once these things are in place, their quality will be better coming out through the cable.
That's great.
Yep. And then we had 2 continued licenses. One was for a liquor license hearing. There was a company called Bottles Fine Wine and Beer that was looking to move into the space by Dairy Queen on 126. And I was very supportive of it. You know, a business wanting to come in. We have someone who has built a project, has spent their money, and is looking to have tenants in that space. Unfortunately, other members of the Board of Selectmen felt that we had an oversaturation of liquor licenses on that side of town. So unfortunately, they did not get their liquor license. And then the other company that came before us was Fusion Cuisine, which is also here on Pond Street. They've had some problems. They've had some issues with the ABCC, which is the Alcohol Board and Commission. They've come before us because of issues. Things are on the upswing, but they were looking to do an entertainment license to try and help build their business back. And again, 2 of the members felt that they need to have a better track record of not having problems before we allow that. So hopefully they can still turn things around. And
It was all one night. You did
oh yeah, and we're not even done with everything we did that night.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's,
Well, that's why it was a long
hour,
meeting.
yeah.
We started at 6. A couple of things we did, some quick things we did was we authorized or approved an appointment by our town manager for new constable. So a constable is someone who can go and serve notices to people. And
How many of those do we have?
I believe he is our 3rd one.
Okay.
And again, it goes through the town manager's office. They have to show proof that either they've been a constable someplace else or that they have the right requirements or the right, and they also work with our police department sometimes. We also approved the election warrant for November 4th, because that's coming up, the big state election. Even though we don't have anything on it for the town, we still, as Board of Selectmen, have to approve that warrant. We also voted to close and post the fall special town meeting warrant. Small meeting warrant this time. It'll be, I think, 11 articles. And at our next show, Around the Clock, we'll be talking in more detail with Tony Schiavi, our town manager, about that town meeting warrant. We looked at our water and sewer rate, and we've set those. Our water rate is going up by about 14%, and our sewer rates by about 2%. So part of the discussion there was people that have been talking about the MWRA connection we've been talking about, which is coming up to town meeting vote. People have said, well, you know, if you go to MWRA, your rate is going to go up more because their rates are higher. And David Manugian has done some research, and it looks like if we just stay with our water rates will go up higher over the next 5 years than the MWRA rate would.
Current rate, okay.
We're looking at that. We received a gift from Kitty Fenwall. They have donated some smoke and CO2 detectors. We have a senior program through our fire department and our senior center, where Dave Iarusi from our fire department goes out and works with seniors to make sure that their smoke detectors are working and they're staying safe. And Kitty Fenwall donates some of these smoke detectors. So I think we got another 100 to go out. Let's see. There is a new state law that you can now open retail alcohol establishments as of 10 a.m. on Sundays. So we had 3 or 4 retail organizations come before us and request that they be allowed to open at 10. So we've approved that.
Before it was what, 12?
Before it was 12.
So people would wait outside at about 11:50.
Probably.
And now they're going to 9:50.
And now they can be there at 10 o'clock and
Or 9:50.
Or 9:50. Right. What was actually interesting, I was at a store in Boston this weekend. It was a Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's sells alcohol in their stores.
Yeah.
And there was this whole area roped off with a sign that said, "We're sorry, but the store opens at 10, but they couldn't sell alcohol until noontime."
It is odd.
Yeah. So that's now going to change. We reviewed the joint capital improvement policy. So here in town, we've been doing a lot of finance things going on. We have our debt management and a few other policies that our town manager and assistant town manager have put in place, and this is now the last part of that. So capital improvement, we have our capital improvement committee, and this is now discussion of how to fund capital projects moving forward for the whole town. So it includes the school side and the general government side. And then we went through our BAA grant project. So the selectmen get funds through the Boston Marathon from the BAA, and we then take those funds and give them out via grants to different organizations in town. So we had some discussions. Some we approved. Some of the ones we said, okay, maybe we just take a chunk of money and give it either to the schools that are looking for some extra funding. And we really try to do things that we're hearing people want in town. So, and we did that. And let's see. The last couple of things, we had some updates from our town manager, and the fact that we're talking about our fire chief will be retiring at the end of December. Chief Key has been in that position for 20 years, and he'll be retiring at the end of December.
Who will replace him?
We don't know yet. We're still in the process of reviewing and deciding what to do. It ties also into the regional fire discussion that's happening. So between Ashland and Hopkinton, going to potentially one chief as of January 1st, and then joining the two departments in about 18 months. So that's still all in discussion, and the voters will get to have a say on that come the Springtown meeting. So.
Has the town taken an official position on any of the ballot questions? I know the one with the bottle deposits, I figured maybe has some effect on DPW or recycling contract.
We have not, as a town, taken a stand on any of those, and I don't know that we will. I think certainly the bottle bill could affect DPW.
Yeah, I was wondering.
But no, we have not taken any stands, so.
It's a good question to put out there, right?
It is a good question to see what people think.
I hope people vote.
Well, that's the big thing, is November 4th are the elections, and it's a big election. And one of the weirdest things, and I don't know if you've seen this, is you're hearing all these people talk about all these Senate races in other states. And no one is mentioning the Senate race here in Massachusetts. And we have a Senate race. So.
You gotta love it. I just hope more people out in suburbia, like where we are, get a chance to vote, or we'll just continue to get dominated by the cities as far as what happens. So show up. That's the key.
Well, that's our Selectmen's update, and we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with a Planning Board update. So stay right there, and we'll be right back.
I have a brain tumor. I forget how to walk. I need a new heart.
Every year, over 1,000 kids will spend Halloween in Sick Kids Hospital. They will miss out on time that could be spent with family and friends. Your donations can help sick kids get children back home with their families where they belong. Please visit our website or call in to donate today.
Because there's no place like home.
Welcome back to Around the Clock. As we have John Dudley here from the Planning Board, we're going to take advantage of that and give you a Planning Board update. So John, tell us some of the things that the Planning Board has been working on recently.
All right. As some people know, we recently approved the site plan and the signed special permit for Needham Bank, which is 41 Front Street. It's the old barbershop. Some people know it as across from Sunnyside. As you mentioned before, there was multiple different boards that had to be involved in this. You had a drive-through that ultimately had to be approved from the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, and then the selectmen were involved because a good chunk of what you probably think is their property is not their property. Like as you, even the walkways, it made it a challenging site to look at. And they also they put aside some mitigation funds for the town as part of all this, which was very helpful. So thanks again for that. And one of the things that we're hoping to do from this point forward is to go after a more comprehensive parking study. So therefore, some people probably know this, but we've had several studies over the past 20 years, from as far as I can see, that have looked at downtown, looked at traffic patterns, looked at parking, and some of them have said that we have enough parking, it's just in the wrong spots. You know, so we're going to try to get that updated. We'll use some of these other studies instead of doing brand new studies, because sometimes I cringe when I hear more studies.
Right.
We'll try to obviously use the money most effectively in order to do that, and to further investigate whether a town green is a reality, whether that's really possible in an area like that. Where will we provide the parking for those businesses so that they're not hurt? Whether it's on street, whether it moves further down to the piece of property that the farmers market currently is at, and maybe the green becomes the space where the current parking is. So those are just some ideas that were tossed around. And we had a couple of other projects. If people have been driving around town, they've probably seen 2 good-sized assisted living facilities. One of them is just behind TD Bank, Shaw's Plaza. And another one is where the old Marathon Deli used to be on 135, headed towards Hopkinton. So those are well underway. Yeah,
I've seen the cranes as I pull into Shaw's. I'm like, oh yeah. And I mean, I knew that the construction was happening, but it's very active right now.
It's happening pretty quick. I mean, a few years ago, it was not the same as far as the climate. We'd see people come in, they'd get projects approved, sometimes arduous process to get there, and then they don't do anything. And so people tend to get excited about what that means, and additional tax revenue, and what's going to happen for the town, because usually there's something that's getting upgraded in the process, and then the project doesn't go anywhere. And but it's changed now. I mean, now some of these projects we permit, and they're out there in a month or two.
Right. Now there's another project as you drive on 135 from Ashland toward Hopkinton. So the assisted living is on the left-hand side where Marathon Deli used to be. But just before the Hopkinton border, there's another project going on.
So over there is probably Ashland Woods, TJ's,
TJ's? Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 40B. And what a lot of people always assume the planning board hears these applications. We don't. That's a state permitted project, and really the only board in town that typically touches these is the ZBA. Sometimes the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, will refer these, I'll call them cases, or to us. It can be other boards, but it's usually voluntary, or it's just at their request.
So if a 40B comes in town, like we're looking at the one at West Union, the old Valentine property, the planning board will not be involved in that one at all?
I always say at all, but people correct me. We have no authority in that particular case, but we wouldn't usually even look at, we wouldn't even see these plans unless for some reason the applicant agreed and it was referred to us, which we've done in other ones. I think Robert Hill Way was one of them that we looked at briefly, but really we're just looking at technical aspects. Does the road meet this and that? Does the criteria, the screening, that type of thing? So we wouldn't typically even see that as far as it's part of a comprehensive state plan. 40Bs, for people who don't know, it's certain affordable content, and that's why the state permits it. They call it the anti-snob law, which you've probably heard.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because affordable housing it could be people in our community who just are, living at a different wage or it's not a negative thing, which I think is tough to sometimes get across to people.
There's a lot of fear around it. And I can see why partially, because people usually have some history. They live somewhere else and Shazam, and low-income housing came in next door, or some state-owned or something, and it just fell to pieces, and then it wasn't pretty. But to your point, properly vetted projects, I want to say the last time I looked at the numbers, it was a family of 4. The income was it had to be at least less than 80 grand. It was still pretty good, pretty high income compared to the national average, if you want to look at that.
Right.
But personally, I would prefer the town to take a more proactive approach as opposed to waiting and letting 40Bs happen in general, because you kind of lose control. You can see you're not allowing the boards that you've elected and our hired officials to really do anything. So other projects where people have large parcels of land, like perhaps say like the 4-H property, for instance, would be an example. We're trying to reach out to these people that own this in advance and say, hey, include us
in the discussion.
Yeah, and we'll try to get some of this out to the public in advance so they could see the plan, hopefully influence the developer or the owner. Hard to do. It's not as easy as it sounds, but and ideally if they know, hey, I know you can do this by right. You could slam 40 houses in there, or you can 40B us with 100 units. I said, but if you can do it where we get to keep the pretty view is to keep it simple, right on Chestnut Street, Elliott. Then for that, we need tools at our disposal which would allow us to give them something, because nobody's going to do something for nothing.
Right.
At least you think you would.
And one of the steps that we are taking to help with that 40B is we are working on a housing production plan with our Affordable Housing Trust and our Affordable Housing Committee. So by having a production plan in place where you're going to talk about over the next 5 or 10 years, this is how we're going to help that production of affordable housing happen, we can then say to these projects that are coming in as 40Bs, oh, we don't need that much housing because we have this production plan in place. So, but it all takes time.
Takes time. We hope it works. We're so low. We're like 4% or something like that last time I checked.
We're very low with our affordable housing.
So I'm just trying to think creative. One of the things we threw out there was called Open Space Residential Design, OSRD. I don't know if I ever mentioned that.
Yeah.
Did I mention it briefly? We stopped working on it for a while because it's just a lot. It's really a lot of work, and a lot of people do these positions, like myself, voluntarily.
Volunteers,
Yeah, you try to squeeze in things around the hours. And so I'm hearing some things where it's potentially coming back, not for fall, it's too quick, but maybe for spring, maybe for next year at some point.
So tell us a little bit about that open space residential design.
You got it.
What does that mean?
Some people that are familiar with the cluster subdivision bylaw.
So like Independent Lane is a cluster development.
Yeah, that'd be a cluster. You got it. Usually when a developer is looking at a piece of property, he might say, all right, this is 10 acres, and if I do this traditionally, I got to put a road in the middle, a little cul-de-sac, and I can get 4 lots or 3 lots or something. And then they do cluster, and they go, oh, with this formula that we follow by our bylaw, I can get 4 or 5 or 6. And so, but to do that, I also have to have a certain percentage of the land here that can't be developed on. It has to be touching each property. Essentially, they're following formulas to see how can I get the best yield out of this particular property. Now, with the OSRD, what the town can do is this would replace, or at least the way we're suggesting introducing to this town would be get rid of the cluster, put this in its place, and there's a negotiating process. They still have to do the formulas, but then we can say, hey, this yellow building, this Valentine building is very valuable to the town. It's got historical resources. If you can keep this and push the development a little further back, we'll let you, this would be an example, of course.
Right.
Put the houses a little closer. If you keep this nice view for the town, the area around the pond, whatever the resource is that the town really wants, we can reward them for that, and we can give them higher number of lots. So there's something in it for them, and then there's something in it for the town. So more negotiated as far as that goes.
Okay. So hopefully we'll hear more about that in the spring.
I hope so,
We'll
and I
have
hope
to bring
there's
you back.
Maybe there's some people that would be willing to help out on it too.
Well, and that's actually a good thing to talk about, right?
Yeah.
What kind of person would you want working on that, or who should be considering running for planning board in the spring?
That's a good question. We could definitely use people with specific expertise. I mean, first and foremost, I think we want people with level heads, no agendas. That's ideal. I wouldn't say you have to have the time. I'd almost prefer people that don't have the time, because it typically means they're professional, they're involved, they're doing, they're working hard, and they're usually very efficient and effective, and that's those are the people we like on boards.
Yep.
Not that anybody at any point in time, maybe you're in a different phase in your career where you can do that. We've got one member. Usually we have one member turnover per year based on our 5-year terms.
Okay.
So you guys are a little different in the way you're structured. So we've got obviously another member. I think Preston's up next year, and we also have an open spot on design review right now.
And design review is appointed by the planning board.
Appointed by the planning board. They look at usually site plan review process, so typically commercial projects on 135, 126, and in downtown. They've had a lot of effect. They had effect on the Needham Bank thing.
Yeah.
21 Main Street. So it makes a difference. And even though they're advisory, the developers listen, because usually they're improving and they're essentially getting free architectural
design review
input.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Which is, it's not as restrictive, at least in that sense, as people might think, the way that we use it currently. We've got a couple of things too. Do you want me to hit
Sure.
those?
What else?
So what's coming up with the fall is we're going back to the solar overlay.
Yep.
So remember in the spring we approved allowing solar overlay in residential areas with specific buffers. They had to be buffered 50 feet plus. And then we dealt with all the other details of this. And now in the fall, what's coming up is actually putting this overlay on the House Street landfill. So getting some yield out of that land. So that I expect to come up. There's a public hearing coming up soon.
believe November 6th is your public hearing
Sounds
on the
right,
solar
yeah.
overlay.
And then I think this is also going to show up in a couple discussions town manager's giving for input along with the other warrant
Right,
articles.
so as part of the town manager's preparation for town meeting, he is having 2 forums, both at the town hall, and you can get those dates on the website. And again, one's at 7, one's at 7:30, just talking people through what are the articles on the town meeting warrant that's coming up on November 18th. And as you said, the solar overlay and putting solar on Howe Street is one of the items on that town meeting warrant.
And one thing I was going to encourage is, last year the people that came obviously a lot of them were on Howe Street, and they had the best of intentions, and I can understand and appreciate what that feels like when you're looking at a field. Obviously, it's a town asset, and the town wants to put it to use, and has people very much interested in putting a project there. What I would hope that the potential developer or the town would do, I'm really hoping they'll come with as much information as they can, even perspectives from the road, elevations perhaps of what it would look like.
Right.
Because I think the fear in general is I'm going to walk out my front door and I'm going to look at solar panels. They're going to be reflecting right in my face.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the information we've received, the solar panels will be facing the other way. They're looking at screening. They're looking at the amount that they're going to put on there. They're not going to have to take any trees down, so they've already looked at the shading that's already there. So I think they've done a little bit more homework, and we certainly want people to come and give their input. But solar is certainly the next technology that is going to help us move away from some of the fossil fuels that we're using as a country. And for the town, it's a way to help save some money on our electricity costs.
Yeah.
So.
And put an asset that really has been out of service for so
Right.
long.
I mean, it's been an empty landfill, and let's utilize it if we can.
So I would, if they can come with elevations, the idea would be show the screening that they're proposing using. We've got certain things we wrote in the bylaw, but of course, sometimes engineers look at it. What's the minimum that I can do? And they come with a fence, and they put, like the privacy screening of the fence and a barbed wire on top, which obviously is not going to cut it.
No.
But there's very creative ways to do it, which berms, landscape, that kind of thing. I'm hoping they'll do a little bit extra, or go all out, for those residents and bring that, show us what that might look like, and then that'll I think go a long way in showing those residents that that we care. So.
Right.
Other thing we saw, which I thought was interesting, I think Mike Herbert brought it forward, and Nat. Was a program called Co-Urbanize. It's an online web app, up-and-coming company that has a platform that they're currently using. If you go on, I think it's Co-Urbanize, urbanize.com, and they're currently using it in Cambridge, possibly Southie, a couple other parts of Boston, or the peripheral of Boston, and they allow certain size projects, or they're even required, I think, once it's a certain size project, where that project will be posted publicly, and it's kind of neat. They have a platform. I've got some reservations, but I'll say on the good side, okay?
Yeah.
Where people can comment, if they can identify themselves, of course, no blind comments. It'll show what the overall impact is, really much more than you can typically get even by requesting from the town to see the site plan, that type of thing. So elevations, possibly traffic flow patterns, bird's eye view, side view, that type of thing. And so people could jump right online and see what's happening near me.
Right, so it's a way for them to sort of look at, from what I understand, look at the town, look at where they live and say, oh, look, there's a project going on. What is the implication of that project? When is the timing, and how might it affect me or my neighbors in the future? You
got it. And I think it'll save town management some time too, at least because people call individual with individual requests, and it'd be really nice to direct them to one spot where it's well presented.
Yeah, that is one thing when we were talking about it, the idea that someone will call in and talk to Nat, our planner, and ask 5 questions, and then an hour later or the next day, someone else will call in and ask those same 5 questions, and because they don't know each other, he's then having to share the information. Whereas if we, looking at this program, it's a way to get the information up and on the website, and we can just point people there. And with the technology and with society, people are looking to be able to find information on the website. They don't want to have to pick up a phone and try to talk to someone a lot of times. So.
And I thought, even if we didn't move forward with this particular one, it's nice to see that the companies are coming forward with technology like this. I mean, I think we may, and obviously we have the town as a whole, management's got to figure out whether this makes sense, because I think we looked at there was a fee, and then there was a fee per project, and then at what size project does this trigger it? You don't want to overburden.
Right, if someone's putting an addition on their house, do you really want them to have to go through this whole process and pay the fee to put the project online? So. Good.
But it was neat. I mean, if people want to check it out, they can go on the website and look at it. And the typical concerns are going to be, can people post and say anything they want? Of course, we're reassured that their algorithm figures out if people are putting libelous or slanderous comments. Yeah. But it's they of course assured us that would not happen.
Right.
But we're looking into it. They got to obviously try to beta this, test it, see if it works, and then if it does, great, we move forward. If not, time passes. I'm sure there'll be other competitors. So
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that planning board update.
no problem.
Stay with us, and we'll be right back with Around the Clock and take you through some theater that's going on here in Ashland.
Garfield and the National Safety Council have some tips for a safe Halloween. Wear brightly colored costumes, short enough to prevent tripping.
I'm wearing this orange cat costume.
Use face makeup or wear masks that are easy to see out of. Trick or treat in daylight and only visit the homes of people you know.
Because you know they'll give you more treats.
Finally, only give or accept tightly wrapped candy.
And use proper trick-or-treating etiquette. Gimme.
Back to Around the Clock. I'm Yolanda Greaves. I have my guest co-host, John Dudley. And we have now also been joined by Joe White and Kelly Fay from the Ashland Community Theater. You are here to talk about your next production.
It's a production called Daymares on Oak Street. It's going to be running November 7th, 8th, and a matinee on the 9th. It's going to be 8 short vignettes regarding spooky Halloween type Hitchcock, Twilight Zone, comedy, little drama.
Okay. And now, Joe, you've been with us before when you did your production last spring.
Yes.
But Kelly, welcome. This is your first time at Around the Clock. So how did the two of you start working together?
Well, I was teaching an acting class in Newton about 2-3 years ago, and Joe was one of my students, and he kept continuing taking classes with me, and he really liked what we were doing, so he thought, this would be fun to bring to Ashland. And the next thing I knew, I was kind of recruited into helping him start up ACT here in Ashland.
Very nice of you to say that.
Yes. And what's your background, Kelly?
I have a background in acting and directing, and I've been teaching kids, teens, adults for a number of years.
Okay. So the show, tell us a little bit more. You've told us what it is, when it is.
Yep.
How did Daymares on Oak Street come about?
One time around 3 o'clock in the morning when I was planning the show, I decided, what do I want to do in the fall? Right, we were doing our May show, and we did the relationships A to Z. We did around 13 vignettes, and I'm trying to figure out what are we going to do in the fall, because we committed to trying to do 2 shows a year. That was on our mission statement in our when we started the program. Daymares, to me, it's a Halloween theme. It was around October, November we were trying to put the show on. We didn't want to interfere with the high school performance that's coming up on October 31st and 1st and the 2nd, so wanted to work with them and make sure that we didn't conflict. So we wanted to be around the November timeframe. The theater group got together, Kelly, myself, and decided to brainstorm some ideas. And we wanted to talk to some people who wanted to write some this year. Last year we had about 40 to 50% people writing the shows, and we had 60% we went out and got. This year we went 100% are written by someone from Ashland. So there's 5 or 6 people that are in here. And we wanted to have it funny, short little vignettes. There are some scenes in there with some monsters, but not scary monsters. There are some scenes in there with some ghosts and seances and different types of spooky things. And some of the twists are in there in the scenes where you think it's going to go one direction and then hopefully it goes in another, kind of surprising the audience a little bit. The basis has been Hitchcock and Twilight Zone, 2 shows that I loved when I was growing up, and I wanted to kind of base some of those scenes on that.
And the group of people that you're working with, did they all know Hitchcock and Twilight Zone?
Everyone but the teenagers in school. When I told them about Hitchcock, they thought it was a rock group somewhere in playing in Boston. But I actually told some of the kids to go watch some of the episodes. It is on Netflix, it is on demand, so they can actually go see the type of things we're doing. So some of the kids are actually watched them and came back and said, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't see that one coming, that was cool.
Is it eerie? For people that don't understand the lingo, what's a vignette?
A short little scene in which it's not a full play. It's around 8 to 12 minutes. And so you can get your point across in that short little time frame, as opposed to trying to put on a whole 3-act, 2-act play. So there are different themes. It's the same theme, but different scenes, different stories.
So if I'm somebody at home right now, so I guess potential audience member, why would I come to see this?
Well, first of all, I'm in it, and so is Kelly. But besides that,
That's it. End of show right there.
I think the feedback that I received from the May show was that the model that we put out there is for people who like theater, they're going to go see maybe something that's going to be funny and enjoyable. For people who are not that sure about it, I think what we have done is it's short enough that people's attention span in today's social media is like, he's already talking too long, I've stopped listening, right? Is trying to make a concise 10 to 12 minute play in which that scene is on, you look at it, you're engaged in it, you see where it's going, it ended, it was funny, and you moved on to the next one. So I think what we've tried to do is it gives the audience the ability to see many different types of things, but it also, as a person in the show, it gives people an opportunity to be into different roles and different scenes themselves, as opposed to being the star of every scene.
And also, a lot of our actors are new to acting, so we wanted to give them little short opportunities without having to be completely overwhelmed with performing for the first time, and just give them a taste of different characters in the process.
Now, part of what you're doing, as you said, a lot of your performers are new to acting, and you're bringing them in by offering acting classes as well.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the acting classes that you offer?
Yeah, the acting classes that I teach are really geared towards just helping people loosen up and get comfortable speaking just before other people. And we do a lot of theater games, which are just like playing, like games you would have played as a kid. And I ask them to set aside their adult mind or their mature mind and just let go and just trust the process of discovery and just not really care. And so the first half, we usually do some warm-ups just to build a team energy as well and get used to each other. And then the second half, we work on developing a character and getting up and speaking a monologue. And then if you continue classes, we move into scene work as well.
When I took your class, Kelly, I wasn't sure what I was going to get into. So people who may be interested in taking an acting class and hear the word acting class, they may be frightened from it. It's more than that. It's what you described. It gives people the confidence to maybe public speak, trust other people in an on-stage environment. I think it gives you a little bit more depth and skills, and I think I found that going back to acting classes with Kelly, it really enabled me to get right back into it. And within a year and a half, we're putting on shows and doing things. I'm not saying that everyone will do that, but I just think it gives you really a good foundation.
Good. Okay. So this is coming up November 7th, 8th, and 9th. Now, with most theaters and most acting theater groups, they're already planning their next thing. Do you have any ideas what you might be doing come the spring that you're willing to share?
Yeah, it's top secret.
I do, because
Okay.
I'm a planner. I'm looking ahead, and it's a contrast between then and now, comparing a little bit of the 70s/80s to today, and the differences in each of those. So I've been thinking about writing some scenes in which, if this scene were to take place in the 70s or 80s, how would it be versus if it were to take place today? With today's cell phones and technology and the ability to always reach people versus, having to stand on a corner waiting for people. So that kind of a theme is what I'm gearing towards. But you're the first person I've told. I haven't told anybody yet.
Ooh,
Yeah, surprise to
breaking
me.
news.
Breaking news.
Yes, right here, around the clock.
Yeah, we seem to be doing that in a couple of shows lately. So, Kelly, I didn't prepare you for this question, and Joe's had this question asked of him. But what I like to ask when someone comes on around the clock for the first time is there something about yourself that people may not know here in town that you'd be willing to share?
Related to acting or?
Related to anything. We found out some interesting things about Joe when he was here.
I'll have to go watch that again.
If you watch the show in the spring, you would know. Nice.
Well, the first thing, and it is related to acting, is that I can be extremely shy and have social anxiety or phobia. And acting was something that I always wanted to do. And I was like, why do I have to want to do this when I'm going to become sick if I have to get up in front of people. And but I've overcome that throughout the years, and I never thought I would be teaching it, let alone directing or even being in a play or anything like that. So I really love going back to the teaching, helping people that are, have anxiety or really shy, and because I have that compassion for, how I was. And a lot of times my students think you weren't like that because, I moved through it, but I can be very shy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know. And actually what's interesting is I find that other people who I've known through the years who have gone into acting, they started out as quieter people who then had to overcome that to do their acting.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a long time that I was like, why can't I just go be, something straightforward, like a nurse or, just something, but I was drawn to it and it didn't go away, so.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. So it's Daymares on Oak Street, November 7th and 8th at 7:30, November 9th at 2 o'clock at the Ashland Middle School, and you can go to ashlandcommunitytheater.com to get your tickets beforehand. Joe, thank you very much. Kelly, thank you for visiting, and good luck with your production.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Yolanda.
Garfield and the National Safety Council have some tips for a safe Halloween. Wear brightly colored costumes, short enough to prevent tripping.
I'm wearing this orange cat costume.
Use face makeup or wear masks that are easy to see out of. Trick or treat in daylight and only visit the homes of people you know.
'Cause you know they'll give you more treats.
Finally, only give or accept tightly wrapped candy.
And use proper trick-or-treating etiquette. Gimme.
So we're going to continue with our discussion and sharing some theater that's going on here in Ashland. I had the opportunity to interview David Harrington, who is the theater teacher up at the Ashland High School. And they do 2 productions a year. They do a drama in the fall and they do a musical in the spring. And we got to talk to him about Pride's Crossing, which is the show they're doing. It actually takes place in Maine. And that is coming up on October 31st, November 1st, and 2nd. So here's my interview with Mr. David Harrington, some of the cast members of Pride's Crossing at the Ashland High School. Take a look. As part of our theater show this week, we are visiting the Ashland High School. We are here with Mr. David Harrington of the Ashland High School Theater Department. Mr. Harrington, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
We are always excited to be able to promote the shows that you're doing, but we wanted to take a little time today and talk a little bit about you and find out who is Mr. David Harrington. I know he's someone that all the kids love. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, they love me most of the time, not all the time. But well, my name is David Harrington. This is my 20th year teaching. I taught 8 years in Boston Public Schools in high school. Then I came here about 12 years ago and started out at the old high school and moved up here. I did my undergrad in theater design and technology and decided I didn't really want to design sets and do lights for my career, and I enjoyed teaching more. I had done some volunteer work at my old middle school, and I said, oh, I kind of like being around the kids more and working with the kids. So then I decided to go to grad school and get my teaching degree and became a theater educator, and that's where I am now.
Okay, so where did you do your theater degree?
Emerson. Yeah, they have a very, very good theater education program. Most drama teachers in Massachusetts are from Emerson.
Okay, now are you from the Massachusetts area, or did Emerson bring you to Boston?
Emerson brought me to Boston. I grew up in Rhode Island and moved up here to go to Emerson and never left.
Okay, well, that's a good thing that you never left, and certainly a benefit for us. What made you want to come out to Ashland?
Well, you were looking for a drama teacher.
That helps.
Yes, and I was looking for a change, and so there was a position that was open, and I took it, and they decided to keep me on, and there we are. Here I am, 12 years later.
So besides the productions that we know you for, you also do classes in the high school. What are some of the classes that you're teaching?
I teach 4 levels of class. I have a Theater 1, a Theater 2, an Advanced Acting, and an Honors Directing. So a student who would like to take theater all 4 years has that option if they can fit it into their schedule, yes.
If they can fit it in their schedule is the tough one.
That's the tough one, yeah, if they can fit it into their schedule, exactly, yes.
Okay. Do you see kids taking theater because they want to be actors and actresses, or just because it's fun for them, or something different?
I think at this point that people are taking my classes, especially the beginning classes, the Theater Arts 1 and the Theater Arts 2, it's because they have a good reputation for classes that are enjoyable to take, they're fun, but they're also learning things in the class, having an opportunity to do things that they don't get a chance to do in other classes, where I focus a lot on team building, working collaboratively, giving them the chance to be creative, doing scripts and coming up with ideas and putting that onto the stage. And so they don't get that opportunity anywhere else. And so they want to they hear about it. It's a small town, small high school, kind of filters up. And so everybody now wants to take theater, which is great, keeps me employed, but I don't really encourage. I know some students would like to become actors but they kind of either work out of that and I certainly don't encourage it. It's not a very easy job to go into. You have to kind of really need to do it, something that's in part of you. I think they learn, especially once they start to get into the higher level classes, the Advanced Acting and the Honors Directing, that whole idea of working with your peers on a project, because they do short plays, they work with their peers who are directing them, all those leadership opportunities to be a director and do a creative project they're not getting anywhere else in the school because it's a very unique class. And so I think that's really what entices them to keep taking classes with the crazy drama teacher. Yeah.
Let's say creative drama teacher
Yeah,
rather
creative,
than crazy.
yes.
There we go. So you always pick interesting shows to do.
Yes.
How do you decide on what shows you're going to do each year?
Well, it's the shows. I pick the shows. They have to be shows that I'm actually interested in doing, that I can live with for 2 months, plus the whole process before the show rehearsals even start. So they have to be shows that I enjoy living with, that I like a lot. For example, the show that we're doing now, Pride's Crossing. It's a play that I read in a women's playwriting class many years ago, and I continually go back to it, reread it, really enjoying it. And so it has to be something that I enjoy would enjoy doing, but it also has to be hard enough for the kids. Is it hard enough for the kids? Is it going to be a challenge? But then it can't be too hard, because then that's not fair to them. And then I look at, what have we done in the past? How similar is it to what we do in the past? Because I kind of look at things in a 4-year schedule. And so if I do a comedy one year, I'll try to do something maybe a little more serious the next year. I mix it up so all the kids can have an opportunity to do different types of plays, or at least audition for different types of plays. The musicals are tougher, because then, it's a small community. I have to look at the singers that I have. I have to look at the ability, and can we do the show? That's really what it comes down to with the musicals. Can we do the shows? I mean, there's a lot of bad musicals out there, and so I won't. A lot of stuff, especially the new stuff, I'm just not interested in doing, because it's not. I don't enjoy it. However, there are a lot of good musicals out there that fit well in this environment in a high school.
And what I have found over the years, as I've watched some of your productions, and as I took a few minutes before talking to you and looking at all these great pictures you have on the wall of all the productions that you've done, you do not shy away from big musical productions. I mean, you did Grease this past spring. The 2 years before that, you did How to Succeed in Business. You needed, 12, 14 young men to be in that one. So you don't shy away from them. So you're doing Pride's Crossing now. What's your spring musical?
We're doing Guys and Dolls. And again, it's the Pride's Crossing is very focused on women. And it's a female main character. And so I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to balance it out with a musical that has a lot of men in it. And I have a lot of young men who are interested in doing musical theater. So funny. A lot of schools don't have that, it takes a lot of effort on their parts to fill those roles. At this point right now, I don't have that issue. I have a lot of men who are interested, young men who are interested in coming in and doing musicals, which is great. Yeah, and sometimes the bigger the better. I don't mind doing a small musical here or there, but I think, giving as many kids as opportunities as I can, that's reasonable, that's manageable, is really what I prefer to do. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Pride's Crossing, and then we're going to see some footage from rehearsal.
Great. Pride's Crossing, it's about a woman who's in her 90s. She lives in Pride's Crossing, Massachusetts, which is actually a real place up on the North Shore near Beverly. It's a fictional story, but it's about a woman who's looking back on her life, and at different moments in her life, she's remembering different moments in her life that affected her greatly, and how that kind of got her to where she is and the choices that she made. It's kind of a study about how do you live your life, and that not everything is, you're not always going to make the best choices, but you're going to make choices, good choices too sometimes, and kind of what happens. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for talking to us. We're going to see a little bit of rehearsal, and then we're going to come back, hopefully speaking to a couple of the actors and actresses from the play. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed those clips of Pride's Crossing, and I hope you get out to see it. The students and Mr. Harrington always do a great job up at the high school, and the theater up there is just amazing, so it's a wonderful place to go see a production. So continuing with the art show and the arts theme for this show of Around the Clock, we got to interview Shirley over at J. White's Automotive, which is a Land Rover business in Framingham, and they're incorporating art into their waiting room, so that when you have to go and sit and wait for your car to be fixed, you have some beautiful things to look at. So they have artwork up in their waiting room, and the proceeds go to different charities in New England. So take a look at our interview with Shirley and everyone over at J. White's Automotive.
Well, we've turned our waiting room into a charitable gallery that contains pieces that have been done by the children at the New England Center for Children. And then we have artists that work with art lifting, which benefit homeless and disabled people. And we also have contributing artists who have contributed their own art that's available for sale, with 100% of the proceeds of their art going back to the New England Center for Children.
Sold some of the art yet?
We have. We've sold 7 pieces, and we hope to continue this as a revolving gallery so that it will consistently change and will be consistently helping some kids that need a little bit of help.
Well, my oldest son, Andrew, who's 16 years old, he has been diagnosed with autism, and it's been an interesting experience having it as our first child. What is autism and how it affects our lives, and it changes everybody's lives, and people say, oh, it must be hard, and it's easy because he was our first son. We didn't know anything different, but then when we had our second son, we really started to notice the differences of autism, and it's so nice that a small business in our backyard community would take the time to just help raise awareness about the concerns that autism families go through and the struggles that the families do go through, because it's not easy raising a child with autism. And as we've just talked about a little bit, those small little children grow up to be adults, and it's nice that there's a forum for the kids to express themselves, and you find that a lot of kids with autism do express themselves through art. So this is just a wonderful event, and it's great that J. White's is doing this as part of their lobby. It's just wonderful as a parent with an autistic kid to see that a small business owner would take such pride in doing this for the community.
Great. And do you have any experience with New England Children's Center?
New England, for many different areas. You know, in my days as a selectman, we've had stuff with the old Metro West Growth Committee, which is now Metro West Regional Collaborative. We used to hold some meetings there, and you know, raising community awareness, and then through small programs, you know, I've touched families throughout the community. You know, a lot of people probably drive by on Route 9 and don't know the value and the good work that's being done by the New England Center for Children right over here on Route 9 in Southborough. If you don't know about it, I would encourage you to know, because unfortunately, you probably know somebody in your family, or at least your close network of friends, that is affected by autism, and you really need to find out all the good work that the center is really doing for families with autism.
I stopped by at White's Automotive today because I was very excited to hear that White's is utilizing its foyer and entrance space for an art exhibit from the Center for Children right here in Southborough, and for airlifting to showcase people with autism, people with disabilities, people who are homeless, people who have challenges and yet are so incredibly talented. It's a wonderful way to build community. It helps White. It helps its customers. You come here, it's a very comfortable, appealing setting, and to look at this terrific artwork, it's just beautiful, and each one is unique. You can really get a sense of the artist. So it helps with customers, it helps the business, but it also showcases the endless possibilities of people who have all different types of abilities, and it's wonderful to be able to support that. So this past legislative session, as part of the Autism Omnibus Bill, we changed the criteria. It used to be that the Department of Developmental Services mainly focused on areas of developmental and mental retardation, not autism, the autism spectrum. So now we've totally changed the criteria so that the Department of Developmental Services has broadened its mission, so to speak, and it's really important that we identify the children earlier, because all research shows that the earlier a child is identified at any level of the autism spectrum disorder, and they get them services, the more successful their education will be, and the better we can help. So we are striving to do that. We've also created an autism commission, statewide commission, to help deliver better services, identify and have best practices across the state. We've created what are called savings accounts, similar to what parents do now for their children for college savings, to be able to create tax-free savings accounts for services for their children as they get older as well. And there are other areas, other things that we did. If anybody has any questions, they can feel free to contact my office at the State House, and we can provide more information. But right now, because of all the work we have done in Massachusetts in the area of the autism spectrum, we are considered among the first in the nation in providing services for children and hopefully adults with autism.
We have one more person to introduce you to, and this is Bianca Xavier. Bianca, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
And she is the gallery director here at J. White's Automotive for this wonderful program. Bianca, thank you for speaking with us. And we are standing in front of one of your pieces of work that you donated to the gallery and to the sale for the charity. Can you tell us a little bit about the painting?
It was actually my last painting I did while I was in high school. It was my final project. And then after, when I heard what Shirley was doing, I kind of got inspired to donate that, because it was my actual painting of the year that I loved. So I thought that me loving that painting will bring inspiration to someone else.
And where did you go to school that you were able to do this?
I went to Keefe Tech. I highly recommend that high school. It taught me so many things beyond what I went there for, which was visual design.
Okay, and what made you decide to go to Keefe Tech?
I'm the type of person that I like to be hands-on. So all my life I've been having the passion to do art ever since I was little.
And what are your plans? You're working here, but what's the next steps for you as an artist?
I'm hoping to continue going to college, and I actually want to go to college for visual design and hopefully either be a art teacher or do art therapy.
Great. Well, both of those are great things. So thank you for showing us this. Thank you for creating this wonderful gallery. And thank you for taking for a few minutes to speak with us. And good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Well, we're closing it up here at J. White's Automotive on Route 9 in Framingham. We want to thank Shirley Warren and Bianca Xavier for having us come out and see their wonderful new art gallery. It's a great way for them to give back as a business with the charities going to the New England Children's Center and to Arts Lifting. So if you want to come see some of the artwork, they'd be happy to show it to you. So come by J. White's Automotive here on Route 9 in Framingham, and I'm going to throw it back to the studio. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that great artwork and the interview with Shirley and the people at J. White's Automotive. We are ready to close our show. John, I want to thank you for coming and being my co-host for this show. It was great having you.
Thank you.
And having a planning board update was great. We'll have to bring you back in the spring.
Let me know.
And see what else is going on.
It'd be great.
Good. I also want to thank Joe White and Kelly Fay from the Ashland Community Theater and Mr. Harrington from the Ashland High School. So John, any last parting message or words you'd like to share with the community before we end the show?
Other than get out the vote.
Yep, November 4th and November 18th.
Tuesday, you got it, and then at the town meeting. We would love for people to show up at the town meeting. You can even bring your little electronic device if you need to surf some other things as you don't want to listen to budget parts, and then your favorite part of the meeting can come up. That's okay, people do that. Just pay attention to what positions are available next year. We can definitely use good, talented, motivated people that want to take Ashland to the next level. So I'd love to see more people going for a lot of the elected offices. So
yeah, it's always good to have a contested race. It was disappointing this past spring when there was not a single contested race.
Yeah.
And it's good to have debate. It's good for the community to have choices. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you're not up for re-election yet. No. A couple more years. Yeah. Good. Well, that was another session of Around the Clock. We are always available via email, askaroundtheclock@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Our next show will be bringing you some footage from the performance from the Ashland Community Theater. We're also going to be taking a quick trip into Boston to give you some snippets of Swan Lake being done by Boston Ballet. So stay tuned, watch Around the Clock, and we'll see you in the community. Take care.